you will make more money going and getting a job than starting an agency if you don't know how to actually really grow a business. And if you haven't done it, you don't know how to do it. I don't care what online course you took from Tai Lopez. Like, you got to actually go and grow businesses, do it successfully. Then you can start building a successful agency. Or it's just a house of cards. You're going to churn through clients like nothing. Your clients aren't going to sustain because they hired you and you don't know what you're doing. And it's going to be a miserable existence because you're basically working as hard as a business owner, but making less money than you could just getting a job.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Joel Irway here, and welcome to another very special episode of Experts Unleashed. And I am really excited. Our guest here today is somebody who I believe you are going to you're going to learn a lot from. We have a rock star, we have a unicorn, and somebody in the agency space who has taken a model that many people struggle with. Many of my listeners, many of you listening right now are agency owners, and done some incredible things, scaled it to exponential proportions. And I'm really excited to dive into that conversation in just 1 minute. Before we get started, I just wanted to quickly remind you, if you are interested in learning how to take your existing business, you might be a bricks and mortar company, or you might have an agency, or you might have your own proprietary way of how you've gotten clients and how you've grown your business. If you were looking to duplicate that into an education model, head over to Gmail, head over to your email and shoot me an email at joel@thewebinaragency.com. We are looking for our next 8-figure partner to help scale them and build their exit plan using an intellectual property framework. So if that's something that you are interested in, let's go over an eight-figure discovery plan, and we'll set up a quick call and see if this makes sense. So head over to joel@thewebinaragency.com. All right, so my guest here today is Erik Huberman, who is the author of The Hawke Method. Now, Erik went from making only $350 in his first year in business to growing and selling 2 successful companies. Sick of seeing that 99% of marketing agencies were useless and the other 1% inaccessible to small businesses, he launched Hawke Media. Today, it's the fastest growing marketing consultancy in the US and has been valued at over $150 million with 250 employees. The company has serviced over 3,500 brands of all sizes, ranging from startups to household names like Red Bull, Verizon, and Alibaba. Erik has been awarded Inc.'s top 25 marketing influencers and Forbes 30 under 30. He's also a sought-after thought leader and has recently joined X Prize as their key marketing advisor. His new book, The Hawke Method, is launching in early 2022. We are since past early 2022. I'm assuming it's already launched now.
Yeah.
Erik, I'm excited, man. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
So I want to dive in, and I've got some, so I was listening to another podcast recently, in the past, I don't know, a month or so. Neil Patel was talking about his agency that he's grown to God knows how big. It's, an enormous agency. And he was on I think it was the My First Million podcast. And he was talking about, his growth and his plan and whatnot. There was a lot of really, really interesting conversations. Now, Neil has a background in SaaS and all sorts of different things. And one of the questions they asked was, they asked Neil was, how did you, how do you productize your services, or how did you scale so big? And what they were asking was, do you only offer like one thing or 2 things or 3 things so you can scale to the size that they are? And he said, no, we are custom. Everything is bespoke and custom. I'm like, how do you scale that? So can you give me and my listeners a little bit of background? You scaled incredibly quickly. $150 million valuation is enormous, 250 employees. Can you talk about, scalability factors and how you got started in the agency space? Because I think so many people listening right now, me included, we run an agency that we do niche down. We do sell 1 to 2 things so we can scale. What's your model?
Well, and so I'd be careful when you hear anecdotes like that, because Neil, more than anything, is an incredible promoter. So knowing his agency, I know that a lot of what they do is actually productized, because that is what makes it scalable. So no, not everything's bespoke, but you'd love to tell clients that, and that's a great pitch. Yeah. Now, I'm sure we could have a debate about it. I don't want to respect the fact that he's not here to defend himself, but there's definitely nuance in that statement. And when you make these broad statements, like everything is bespoke, no, when you're launching a brand new company's SEO, there are definitely check boxes that you provide that you do the same thing every time to make sure that things are covered. Over time, most stuff becomes bespoke, and that makes sense. But there's 100% for any scalable service business, a kickoff list that you're going to do, that you're going to check the box that a lot of times covers a lot of clients for a long period of time, because most people looking for services like mine or his are not even checking the basic boxes. So that's that. Yeah, again, yes, it's bespoke in the sense of like you're still prescribing things to people based on what they need, but it's not like every single strategy is completely unique, because they're usually using these set of tools to do these specific types of goals. And depending on what how those things match up, there's a list of 20 different options that you're going to play, so to speak. And so, yeah. So in terms of that statement, I would say the opposite. Like how we got started is figuring out what the low-hanging fruit is for most businesses, figuring out where we need to find that scalability in their marketing so they can predictably grow their business. That's the part that a lot of people miss. And creating that predictability, that reliability, and that consistency in their marketing so they could grow their business off of that. That's more how I look at marketing. A lot of people look at it as like, how do I get that viral video so I can get that sugar rush from my marketing and get a bunch of revenue in? And what you know is, yeah, that feels great that month. And then when you can't replicate it the next month, you're screwed, because you just ramped up an operation to feed that beast. And now you don't have any more food. So generally, how I look at marketing is, how do we make something that's repeatable and scalable? Because that's how we look at marketing. Most of what we do is repeatable and scalable. It's how to run best practices on email marketing, SMS, Facebook, TikTok, Google, web design, overall marketing strategy, data, et cetera. And that's why we've seen, like at this point, we've grown over 4,000 brands successfully, because the basics are tried and true and do work. And then I always think of it like a stock portfolio. Like we handle that blue chip, 90% of your portfolio that's going to be consistent. And then you can play with 10% on doing, sort of moonshots. And that's totally okay. Because then if they fail, you still have the 90% picking up. And if they succeed, it all picks up together. You get that synergy. So that's how I look at it. And so that 10% of moonshot, that's where you get creative. That's where you try crazy things. That's where you're being bespoke. And we do participate in that. We look at that too. But most of the side of the business is like, let's be the consistency factor that allows them to grow as fast as they want to grow.
When you started this agency, when you started your agency, did you start it with the intent to grow it as big as possible, package it up and get a valuation in hopes for an exit? Or was this initially like, hey, I'm looking for, maybe I need a cash cow. Like I'm just looking for something that feeds a revenue arm, or, becomes an income source. Like what was your initial goal starting out when you launched the agency?
It sucks that all these companies I'm trying to help can't find marketing help. I'm going to build a team to do it. Like sincerely, it was just like, this problem's right in front of me. I'm going to solve it. I think people get way ahead of themselves. You build a business to sell. It's like, there's a great line that if you don't build a business like you're going to keep it forever, you will. Where it's like, if you're building to exit, I just heard this with another agency that's like, yeah, I'm going to build it for 3 years and then we're going to sell it for a few $1 million, and then I'll move on to my next thing. And it's like, person has never had success like that. It's like, oh yeah, you just call in the shot. Don't get me wrong. 1 out of 1,000, 10,000 people, whatever it is, call that shot. And then everybody talks about that person. It's not that easy. And, if I was going to take the exit, I should have taken, when we got valued at 150 million, I could have taken that number. I didn't. So we got an offer for 150 is where that number came from. And it was, so it was never like, I'm building this for some goal. It's just building it to build it, building it to solve problems, building it to be a good company. And what the outcome looks like it's not, I think people focus too much on like, oh, maybe I can get this $100 million exit, or maybe I can just cash cow and make millions of dollars a year, which thankfully we do. But the other side of that is like, assuming that that's going to happen, like there's so much luck involved in that outcome that if that's how you start out, is I'm building this because I'm going to, have a cash cow, like there's a reason it's called the 1% and the 0.1%. Like, it doesn't happen that often, even if you go for it. That doesn't mean don't keep trying, but like I always say, like you can be a level of successful, which has been so skewed, but you'll pay the bills, you'll be fine, you'll buy your house, you'll be successful if you work hard and you're smart. Like smart enough, hardworking enough, you'll get there. How successful, I believe, is all timing and luck. Like I can't, like if you work 18 hours a day, 20 hours a day, whatever, pick your number. You can't, there's a limit where it's just, you can't work harder. Right. And only so smart. At the end of the day, a lot of timing, circumstance, luck has to come into play too. And so anyone that's successful works hard and, is smart and to some level, let's say. But then again, timing is a big factor in circumstance.
Yep. It's funny. I was having a conversation with one of my other entrepreneurial friends recently, because we were talking about, we see so many people around us who are doing 9 figures and 8 figures and all this other stuff. And you see some people explode like through the stratosphere incredibly quickly. And then you see some other people who are having success, but it's just a slower trajectory. And you compare the two, it's like person A and person B, there's no real major intellectual gap between the two of them. They're both very intelligent, but person B just happened to be in a market that exploded. And I think the example that he was using was the CEO of FTX, in crypto. Like, it's like, yeah, he's smart, but like, are you trying to tell me that he's like 400 times smarter than me and like a whole collection of my other friends, the entrepreneur space? Like, no, he's in an exploding market. And did he make some really smart moves? I can't remember his name, but did he make some really smart moves? Yeah, of course he did. But it's like,
I guarantee he was at an event and met someone that opened a door that helped, it's like these things that happen that, by the way, being out there is part of that. Like, you have to be there for the opportunity to happen. But also, like, if you get into it for the money, it's not a straight line to success. I know, and this is a cliche. You see all the memes of like, this is what success looks like. It's not this, it's this. Yeah. But it's true. Like, and so if you're doing it for just the cash outcome, you're not going to make it through those years. Like, I've learned this year, because this year I don't give a fuck what the government says. Like, we've been in a recession. We have a ton of we have a data platform, Hawke AI. We have the data for almost 10,000 companies' marketing data and revenue data. I know what's happening in the economy. It's a 99% correlation with Facebook, Google, and Shopify's publicly traded data. Like, I can see what is happening. It's been a tough fucking year for businesses, a really tough year. What I've now learned, though, is if you don't give up and you push through, I believe most businesses go out of business and fail because they give up. And I don't mean that in like a, what do you call it? Like almost a casual way. I mean, like, you get to the point where it's like, you're now going to be $10 million in debt. You can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You don't know how you're going to turn it around, and you just go, fuck it. Like, you have to make that decision at some point to say, fuck it. Or you just keep going and keep going and keep going. And either you dig a deeper hole or you start digging out of it. And so why I say that is, in those times, and I've been through them, when you're watching this instead of this, if you're in it for just the money, you're going to be fucking miserable, and you're probably going to throw in the towel. Yep. So you got to be really careful why you get into business. There's just too much social media crap. By the way, you mentioned all these 8 and 9 figure CEOs and how everyone talks about their numbers. I'd guess that 85 to 90% of those people are full of shit. My favorite is like, you have the All In podcast that got super popular recently, where it's, billionaires talking about whatever. Yeah, one guy on that podcast is a billionaire, but somehow they all talk about themselves as billionaires. And these are successful people, Jason Calacanis, et cetera. Like, Jason Calacanis is not a billionaire, but he calls himself a billionaire. So it's this vernacular that's come out. Like, he is not worth $1 billion, but there's a vernacular that came out. And now everyone it's created this weird societal thing where everybody thinks everyone else is a billionaire, 100 millionaire. And it's like, there is a tiny list of those people. It is a tiny billionaire specifically. 100 millionaires is a bigger list, but still, the likelihood of getting there is so low that if that's that's not a real aspiration. Your aspiration should be to create something and create change and make money doing it. But like, if you seek out to just make money, you will give up when that money doesn't seem realistic, and so you'll never get there. Is I guess the point.
So let's go back. I want to go back to something you said earlier, which was, identifying the low hanging fruit, like how you started your agency, and just knowing that, the problem in the industry, why can't people hire great talent for marketing? That was the problem you set out to solve. The world of marketing is so broad, right? And so like calling yourself a marketing agency, there's a billion things you could do, SEO, website design, like you name it, right? So it's kind of going back to like, what are all the things that you do? What was that first low hanging fruit that you set out to solve when you started to create your prospecting list? Like, okay, hey, this is low hanging fruit that I know I can solve for my target avatar. Like, what was that first thing that you set out as your offer to get your foot in the door with the first handful of companies?
What do I do? It was pretty simple. Nobody knew but most business owners don't know how to market. They're not marketers. So it's just like, how do I build this thing? How do I get customers? How do I grow? Like, what are the things I should be doing? It was, and you mentioned the book. That's what it was. That's what the book's about. Like, my favorite review for the book is my first day, I got a 1-star review that said, I don't get it. It's basically just modern marketing 101. It's like, yeah, no, that's where it starts. But the thing is, most business owners don't have modern marketing 101. So that was the start, was just marketing strategy. We call ourselves your outsource CMO. It was like, hey, we're going to come in and identify where the holes are in what you're doing and help you figure out where the opportunity is to grow your business. And it turned out just taking more of that bird's eye view of their business to start, and then prescribing things was a much better way to go. Like, there's plenty of companies that'll sell you Facebook ads or Google ads or whatever you named a list, SEO, et cetera. And they're going to be very biased towards the services they sell and try to sell you that. For me, I was like, I'm going to start with like, what do you actually need? And then let's figure out what we provide or what someone else will provide. So we also would refer business out, be like, you need PR. We don't do PR. So you should talk to this person.
Yep. So you would reach out and do a discovery session first of like hey, can we audit what's going on in your marketing department and find the holes? And
Exactly.
then you would prescribe the solutions, right? So typical, discovery audit process and then prescribing.
Consultative sales.
So was that primarily outbound? Was it primarily outreach? Like, hey, you're reaching out to these companies, like, hey, can we come in and look at and audit your audit your marketing? Is as simple as that?
It was more networking. I'd go out, like, I'd built again, the other issue people run into when they're trying to build agencies or consultancies is like, they don't actually have any expertise in it. Like, it has become a very shiny thing to build a marketing agency with guys like Gary Vaynerchuk. And everyone thinks, another guy that's like, oh, he's made, billions of dollars. And so, we should do what he's doing. And it's like, you don't win any prizes for copycatting. Like, not a good idea. And so there's no barrier to entry in starting an agency. So everyone does it. The problem is, you will make more money going and getting a job than starting an agency if you don't know how to actually really grow a business. And if you haven't done it, you don't know how to do it. I don't care what online course you took from Tai Lopez. Like, you got to actually go and grow businesses, do it successfully. Then you can start building a successful agency. Or it's just a house of cards. You're going to churn through clients like nothing. Your clients aren't going to sustain because they hired you and you don't know what you're doing. And it's going to be a miserable existence because you're basically working as hard as a business owner, but making less money than you could just getting a job. So
there's so much truth in that. Like, as someone who's run an agency for 7 years, it's trial by fire, and you got to see the inner workings. And as much as you want to cookie cutter every single thing, every business is different. Their marketing strategy, their internal operations, what their goals are different than another client who's even in a similar space. You might be working with competitors, right? But like, their goals are different than this goal. This person's goals. These people want to grow as fast as humanly freaking possible at the expense of, margins and anything, because they're just trying to grow as big as possible. Whereas this person over here doesn't have that goal. All of that changes your marketing strategy and your messaging and execution. So I agree with that 110%. So your initial launch, you leveraged your internal network first for like, hey, let me share my expertise.
I just kept building network. I went to events. I just was out and about. I still am all the time. You go on the road, you talk to people, you become concise about your message. It started with my own credibility, which is I'd built and sold 2 e-commerce companies, been successful in the space. So they wanted to know what I knew. And then from there, we quickly did it well for some clients. And then we had some case studies and things to talk to and good client, flagship clients that we could point to. And then and just continue down that path.
So was it primarily e-commerce companies that you would focus on?
In the very beginning, yeah, because that was my background. And then quickly it expanded though.
Got it. Okay. And so you're out there networking. Do you have an outbound team? Like, do you have a cold outreach team that's setting up? Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, that's
not for a long time though, to be clear. Well, a long time it was inbound network, like building our brand, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So you started out inbound networking and then eventually grew to outbound and the whole 9 yards. Did you ever run, out of curiosity, did you ever run ads for your agency, or was it primarily you did run ads for your agency?
Still do. Yeah, it's not hyper effective, but it's another complement, I'd say. Yeah. So it's like at some point you want to be kind of covering everything.
Yeah. We found the same thing, meaning because there are so many people out there, like, running ads to get agency clients, like, okay, yeah, it can be effective, but you better stand out. I mean, you better be really clear on your messaging. You better have a clear USP. And a lot of people just, in my world, we have a lot of lifestyle entrepreneurs. So they only want to run ads because they don't want to do outbound. They don't want to do networking, the whole 9 yards. It's like, listen, like it's only going to take you so far. It's only going to take you so far. Your top tier clients, your big clients probably aren't going to be responding to ads. Like, let's be honest, they're going to want referrals. They're going to be networking. So, anyway, I was just curious, I always like asking different agents, like, how did you grow so big? How did you grow so fast? And, not many people say, oh yeah, it's because of ads. It's like, no, it's like we have other channels that far outperform ads. We still run ads. They are effective, but it's like, 10% of what we do. Awesome. So what would you say is kind of like how would you identify yourself as a personality type? Are you more so a builder, or are you more so the idea person, right? Because it's all about that complement of like, when you grow a really, really big business, particularly an agency, which is very service-based oriented, you really need great SOPs to make that scale. Where would you say your strengths are? Are you more so the idea guy in startup and the big visionary, or kind of?
I hate to keep debating, but I would say the sort of fallacy of the idea guy, I don't think exists. I think there's what do they call it? The visionary and the integrator is the way I think EOS puts it, which I agree with the visionary, but it takes execution too. I'm definitely more the visionary than the integrator. My business partner, our president, Tony, is more the integrator, where he's putting in process, procedure, best practices, getting our team in line and running, making sure the day-to-day runs, while I'm figuring out where we're going, where we're expanding, and then doing it. And I think that's the part, like, idea people a lot of times don't think that then they have to go run with their ideas. Like, it's more than ideas. It's running with it, getting it done, teeing it up, so that then I can flip it over to my partner to build the process around it once I've started it.
Yep. So, one of the questions that you've got here of like topics that you like to talk about, how to know when you're ready to outsource your marketing. So if you're talking to, businesses right now, like, what are some indicators that they have to look at to say, hey, listen, we've tried hiring in-house in the past. We have some moderate success, but like, when should they know that an agency can outperform what they're doing in-house?
Yeah. So a couple of things there. One, I wouldn't hire anyone, internal or external, till you can spend at least 10 grand a month on marketing. So like, if you're a small business, like, you got to go build your business yourself, and don't try to outsource that initial growth, because you're just going to spend a lot of money to get little return. You're not giving someone enough sort of horsepower to be able to actually leverage someone. And if you find someone that's going to take $500 or $1,000 a month to go to your marketing, they're going to be worth what you're paying for. The next step of that is get away from the idea that it's binary, meaning in-house or outside. And this is a mistake tons of companies make. The answer is both. The answer is there's going to be core expertise that you should have in-house, generally around like core product expertise and things that you can do better in-house. Like, a lot of times content living in-house, if you can find a great content person, is a good thing, because they can be around the product, they can be there full-time. I would say when you need full-time, low-level expertise, you're probably better off in-house, because you're paying a markup on people with an agency. When you need part-time, high-level expertise, you're generally better off outsourcing it. And so the example I give that of like email marketing, as a small business, you probably don't need a full-time email marketer. So hire an agency. Same thing with your media spend, your advertising. You don't need a full-time person. I know having someone monitor it, quote unquote, feels good, but rationally, it doesn't improve your performance whatsoever. In fact, changing your ads on a daily, every other day basis is the dumbest thing you can do to run your ads. You need to let them optimize. You need to let them play out. And so I know that's hard for a new entrepreneur, but that's part of it, is partnering with someone that has best practices. And then we say, like, obviously it depends on the agency. I still stand by my belief that 99% of them are awful, but agencies like ours, like, we have full-time teams at Facebook, at Google, at TikTok, at Klaviyo, at all these platforms that, like, we are going by nature to know way more about these platforms and know how they're changing and what's coming than any individual brand. And so you just can't compete with us in-house. So, and marketing is a competitive landscape. So if we have all this information, we also have, as I mentioned, our AI platform, where we have like 10,000 companies' marketing data, and we can see in real time how things are ebbing and flowing. You can't replicate that in-house. And so you're just going to lose. So if you decide to do it in-house and we go do it for your competitors, we're going to outpace you. We're going to perform better. And that's what we see over and over again. We just got Google's top award as one of their partners, because, like, yeah, all our data and all our knowledge does actually turn into better returns, better performance for our clients.
Where do you see as typically, so this is going to be a broad question, and you can say, I can't answer that because it's way too broad, right? But like, if you're analyzing, you're doing an audit on one of your clients, the majority of the time, where do you see like the biggest levers to pull that say,
Yeah.
hey, listen, like if we pull this like this is the first thing that we should pull. If we pull that first, like we'll get a really big win, and that'll allow us to kind of coast and do some other micro wins down the road. Where do you typically see is that first big lever?
Yeah, it depends on the scale, this stage of the business. Assuming the business has been in business a little while, we see
Yeah.
still so many people miss out on their like the nurturing side of their business. And like we talk about marketing in three categories: awareness, nurturing, and trust. That's what the
Yep.
book's about too. This book, um, and we've sold 25,000 copies of that this year. Basically, what it is awareness is how you identify and get in touch with new potential customers. What people know you exist. It's what people think of as marketing. It's advertising, word of mouth, PR, etc. What most people miss isn't that, because that's how most people think of as marketing, because that's also what you see is all that. They miss nurturing, which you still see as well, but it's like email marketing, SMS, content, things that bring people back into the fold during what's called a purchase cycle, also known as a consideration period. That's what people forget. And that's what people miss is the idea that from the first time someone sees an ad to the time they buy, it takes time. And if you haven't built a funnel and capabilities to make sure to nurture those people during that period, you're going to have a lower conversion rate and you're going to have a longer sales cycle because you're not going to be accelerating it by staying in touch. And so that most of the time is the low hanging fruit. Not always, but a lot of times they're already driving traffic in, they're getting traffic, and we can just help juice their conversion, get a faster conversion as well, help them track their marketing properly, because that's the biggest issue in the entire industry right now is that Facebook's tracking is completely broken, like not partially broken, like it doesn't work. And so people are still reading the Facebook dashboards as if they're gospel, and it's basically underreporting massively. So it's driving tons of people to shut off their Facebook because they don't know how to track it properly.
Yep. Yeah, it's always the same argument that we have with our clients. It's like, where do they see through the lens? How far down the road do they see? And most of the time, they're only looking at the ads or like that first level of customer engagement. It's like, okay, because I'm cutting Facebook a check every single day. I'm cutting Google a check every single day. So like their focal length is really, really short. It's like, well, how do I get that ROI higher? It's like, okay, well, if you want the ROI higher, like you got to extend the sales cycle, right? You got to actually do some nurturing because that's where the real money is made. It's always like what they think is the problem is never the problem. You have to reveal to them what the real problem is the back end. You got to nurture. And sometimes that's you and I both know that it's a big lever to pull. Having that conversation with the client can be a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I want to pivot gears a little bit and check the time. I want to pivot gears and I want to talk about like hiring a team from an agency. Like, how difficult was that for you? I mean, you've built companies in the past, so I'm assuming that you obviously had experience. It was probably easier than most people. But did you have any major challenges as you started to really grow? You're over 250 employees right now. Like, what were some of those stages and hurdles that you guys had to overcome when you hit the different stages of growth in your agency? And did you have any plateaus that really held you back for a while before you overcame that when it comes to hiring?
Yeah, on the hirings, I mean, we ended up needing recruiters because like at a certain size, you are like at 250 people, we have actually a pretty decent retention of employees, and still we're pretty constantly either having to grow and recruit people, replace people. Some things, there's always job ads up. And so getting to that stage was interesting. But listen, in terms of like culture and as the company scales, like just assume the entire company is going to change every time you double. So going from 17 to 35, or 34, obviously, but going from 34 to 60, it was really year by year. We went 17, 35, 65, 100 was, I think, the original scaling. And every year it felt like we were rebuilding an entire company. And it still feels that way. It still feels like, there was a quote I heard from Eric Schmidt that like he didn't believe that an executive has more than a 3-year shelf life, an executive. And so not saying that that's always true. That's, like anything, generalizations are generalizations, but there is truth to it where certain executives do not last more than 3 years. And that means you're having to rebuild them. And a lot of times when you redo that, you realize their entire department needs to be restructured in some way. And you have to piece that back together. And I see that with a lot of big business. If you're in hyper growth like we have been, things change fast. Now, if you're more steady Eddie and you're growing at 20% a year, 10% a year, 30, like depending on that speed, is how fast things are going to change. And I do, and so that's part of it too. And again, if you think about that, if you're growing at 30% or even 25% after 3 years, you've about doubled. You're now going to have to figure out a whole new team. It goes about with that every time you double, got to figure it out. And then there's other factors. The world changes. Like COVID caused a whole bunch of people to rethink everything. And so we had an employee quit after a couple of years because he wanted to go start a t-shirt company on the beach in Hawaii and not deal with anything anymore. So like, there's a lot of that too, that when you're dealing with a people business, it's volatile. So I think that's important to understand if you're building any type of service business, is like, there isn't really a point where you reach stasis and it's just like, everything's good, everything's stable, no one's ever going to leave me, employees will stay forever. Like, that doesn't exist. It's just a constant moving target, and you're putting in new processes, fixing things, changing with the times. There's a lot of things that need to constantly happen there.
Yeah. On a leadership team standpoint, like, what had to be stable in order to handle that type of change, that type of constant change, that type of entropy? It's like, if you're growing that fast and you're cycling through people every time you double, I mean, that's a ton of change.
I wouldn't say you cycle through the whole team, to be clear. I'm just saying things shift.
Got it. Okay. But I mean, like, obviously structure is going to change as you continue to double.
You need more management layers. There's people you promote. There's people you bring from outside. Like, when you double, you're going to need another, decent layer sometimes, or not, but that's what you're figuring out all the time.
Got it. So is that something that your partner had experience with in the past, of like managing that type of growth and managing that type? Yep.
No, neither of us have. I mean, this is the biggest company either of us have built. So it's honestly, and it is a trial by fire kind of thing. You figure it out, make decisions based on rational hypothesis. And if it's not right, divert quickly.
Yeah.
And we've done that. We've made plenty of mistakes. One of our execs decided we needed to get a ton of project managers to help everyone in the company. And we're going to hire like 40 people in the Philippines to do it. We did it, and all it did was create redundancy and inefficiency. And we had this giant expense that literally just cost us money from the, headcount standpoint, as well as just made everyone less efficient and reliant, and like ruined the experience across the board. And so that spun up in a month and was gone in 3 or something. Like, it was like, just like, boop, nope, never mind. So you go with a thesis, and then you look at it and you go, no, that wasn't a good idea. Let's not do that.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. It's, growing an agency, there's just so many different layers, especially as you grow as fast as you. So I always like to hear like their experience, as you grow that a team that large, especially that much, so many different skill sets and so many different services that you offer. Like, it's my brain can't comprehend it. I'm more the visionary. I'm definitely not the systems guy. And so I do like looking at how people grow that on the system side, because I'm in awe of it. I'm like, you think way differently than I do. And that's why I have a partner who knows all that stuff, but I still like observing it, because I'm just kind of in awe of how people's brains function in that. Yeah.
Capacity. It's just, if you see that you're doing the same thing over and over again, create a process, a procedure to it. And that it's like, and then make sure that that's trained on. There's a consistency of delivery to your own employees. That's the part that I think a lot of new businesses struggle with, is like, they create a process, but you got to manage to it.
Yeah.
And that's important too. It's an ongoing reminder. Like, people forget, people start doing their own thing. You got to refocus them on doing it the right way. This is across the board. This is the way we service our clients. This is the way we sell. This is all of it. Like, we have a process now that has worked for 9 years, that has done really well. That doesn't mean that we don't have to constantly remind everyone in the company to follow those processes.
I think what fascinates me the most is really looking at org charts and seeing how people structure their org charts when you grow like that. Because, okay, yeah, create the SOPs. Like, it sounds easy. Everyone needs, and no matter how big your agency is, you need SOPs, right? Yep. But it goes way beyond SOPs. Like, when you start to grow as large as a company like you, like, I like to look at the layers. Like, okay, what's the org chart? Like, where are people reporting, and how many different layers are there? And that's what I like to analyze. Like, just kind of a hierarchy, structural standpoint of like, okay, well, point of contact. Like, how does all that stuff work when you're bringing on thousands of clients? And so, cool. Well, awesome. So I guess the last question that I want to ask you is one that I found was interesting. How do you get access to Fortune 100 marketing on a small business budget? That's one of the key things that was featured on your profile.
Yeah, that's funny. I would just say, like, the way we put it is like, we work with Fortune 100s, many of them, and we work with small businesses. So the answer is Hawke Media. But yeah, no, what we've just figured out a model that, it's not easy. Like, I love hearing it. Like, we have some advisors and stuff in the company. They're like, we built a hard business to run, but it's rewarding because we're able to bring, literally, we work with some of the biggest companies in the world: Estee Lauder, Nike, Unilever, et cetera, Red Bull, HP, and yet and Facebook, Google, Amazon, et cetera. But we also work with people building their first company out of their spare bedroom or their garage or whatever it is. So that was the idea. That was the original thesis, is like, our mission is accessibility to great marketing. How do we be the best at what we do, but really easy to work with? And that is the crux of what we've been trying to build. And, the mission that gets me up in the morning, that it's like, that's what we're going to keep fighting for.
Out of curiosity, where do you see the future heading right now with social media? TikTok's on the rise. It's been on the rise. Obviously, it's grabbing the most attention. Facebook's probably on the decline. That's my opinion. I don't know if that's anyone.
Yep. Totally agree.
Facebook's on the decline. I was primarily a Facebook user. I wasn't on any other social media platforms. I'm only 36, but now I've started to migrate to Instagram and YouTube. I still can't do TikTok, but I will tell you, I've gone on a couple times, and that is addicting. It's terrifying. It's terrifying how addicting it is.
Yeah.
I've got on probably 3 times, and every time I'm on for at least like 25 minutes, just constantly.
Yeah, I think the average user uses it an hour a day.
It's crazy, man.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And so I had to just like manually tell myself, because I can't handle that many social media platforms. So right now, Instagram and YouTube are my 2 primary ones. What do you see as the landscape right now for social media? Do you see TikTok working for big businesses or B2C?
No, and we agree. Basically, Instagram and Facebook are still the best. You have to track it properly. If you're using the native Facebook tracking, you're screwed. So don't do that. Use Triple Whale. Use third-party tracking tools. We use Datarama and then Hawke AI, our own tracking tool that we've built, and that's also that benchmarking tool. So use third-party platforms to make it work. But that being said, so I think it's important to, like, when things are on the decline in marketing, it doesn't mean they're dead. And people forget that. Like, it can decline for a while before Facebook and Instagram don't work. That being said, TikTok is doing the opposite. It's just skyrocketing. And my team sees it. They call it 1A and 1B right now. So it's not like TikTok's number 2 to Facebook anymore. It's just kind of right there. Yeah. And I think it's just a matter of a few months before it beats it. And it's just a function of making the ad product better. The ad platform isn't great yet, but the user base is there. The usage is there, the propensity to buy is there. So we're already seeing a lot of great performance. We're starting to, instead of, if we get a $100,000 a month Facebook, Instagram budget, we're starting to recommend 50 and 50. Like, literally just splitting budgets and going on to TikTok, because they help each other too. So definitely believe in TikTok. Google's great too, but that's a completely different, like, we could get into a lot more detail on how these different platforms work. YouTube as an advertising channel is not great. As a content channel, it's awesome. And as an influencer channel, it's great. Twitter, we all know, is not a great ad platform. I think they've pretty much publicly said that at this point. What else is there? Snapchat, not doing great. I wish it was doing better, but they just haven't ever really figured out their ad product properly. Yeah. And, on the other side, like, people it's almost 3 years now. I think it is 3 years now. SMS became a legal marketing channel, and brands still are completely underutilizing that. Like, SMS to me is still just the holy grail of, like, the newest hot thing that should be used. And it's been 3 years, but Facebook ads have been around 12. So, it takes some time for these things to mature.
Yeah. It's we're seeing a lot of success on YouTube, but we primarily focus on education-based companies. So YouTube works really, really well for our clients. And so do Facebook, so does Instagram, but we find a lot of stability on the Google platform because it's all search intent, and it's just easier to kind of scale there. Yep. We always had a bear of a time scaling on Facebook. We got some clients that do operate on TikTok a little bit, but it's one of those things like, TikTok is just fascinating to me. It's absolutely fascinating because it's like, you look at Mr. Beast and then you look at TikTok, and the way that Mr. Beast has driven, so I'm on YouTube a lot. So the way that Mr. Beast has driven, the way that content is produced is just feeding into anybody who has attention deficit disorder. Like, he even publicly talked about it. Every 2 seconds there needs to be a cut. So constantly it's like, boom, like every 2 seconds you're going from, next thing. And like, that's what TikTok is on freaking steroids. And so that's why it was just so amazing to see TikTok and understand why people get addicted to that. It's just absolutely, it's fun to watch, but sometimes it can make you a little nervous.
Yeah.
So, well, awesome. Erik, this has been fantastic. Your book, The Hawke Method, where can we find that? Is that hawkemethod.com?
Yeah, but at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, it's easy. It's just The Hawke Method, Hawke.
Awesome. And so give us a little plug for the book. Why should somebody go check out the book? What's the, yep.
Basically, it's, the overview of modern marketing 101. Like what are the ways to think about marketing and how all the channels apply to it, so you can understand what's missing, what's not in your marketing strategy, and figure out where the low-hanging fruit is. I mean, it's literally what we've done to analyze 10,000 different marketing companies' marketing. It's what we've done to grow over 4,000 brands. It's what we've done it's what I've done probably, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds, probably 1,000 different speeches and lectures and colleges and conferences, et cetera, on how to do marketing, all put into a book that now we require our entire team to read. We give to every client. Like, it has been a really compelling asset to help people understand marketing, and the feedback's been awesome.
Awesome. So we'll link to that. That is hawkemethod.com. That's HAWKE method.com, or head over to Amazon and grab it. Erik, man, it's been a pleasure getting to know you. It's been a pleasure to pick your marketing brain from agency owner to agency owner, and nothing but respect to see how big you guys have grown. And it's very, very, it's very cool to see. So appreciate you spending some time with us. Go check out the book, Hawke Method, on Amazon or hawkemethod.com, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.